more.
Thank you, Bill. Tammy.
So, from everything I know so far, I support the program. It's everybody wants to belong, and you all want to have somebody to sit next to at lunch, and you just want to be accepted. And so, the diversity program is about saying, well, all of us are welcome. I don't see that as a problem. I think that's a good program.
Amy Ransom from Newfields, running for the Exeter board. I'm actually fortunate to live in a community. I live in Newfields that has a DEI program. We have a DEI director at our offices. I work in a community that has a DEI director. There's only 4 of them in the state, and I think it's wonderful. I think it's important. I agree with Bill. It's a great place to start. Schools is a great place for students to start. They need to feel that they're included. Every student needs to feel that they're included. Every student needs to feel that they are in a safe environment where they can learn. We live in the Northeast. If you've never left the Northeast, you don't know what it's like in other places. You're not apt to meet other people. And I think DEI brings that in. It teaches us about other people, other cultures, other religions, other ways of life. If we don't talk about it, if we don't teach our children at a young age where they need to be accepting of other people and other ideas, I agree with Bill, when they leave, they're not necessarily going to have those opportunities, and they might not be so open-minded to different people and different experiences. So I support DEI. I have work to do. I came previously from a district that didn't have one, and this is a new concept. We all should be learning. It's going to be constantly learning for us. Nobody can say we're an expert in DEI because different things are going to be coming along. There will be different changes. So I support it not only for our students, but for our staff and our community.
Thank you, Amy. I thank the candidates, and at this point, for our schedule to keep moving on, we're going to do a set change. I'm grateful that the 3 of you were able to join us. Thank you, Cole and Jack. And as we're changing sets, we'd like to visit with the Budget Advisory Committee members from Exeter, Kensington, and Stratham. So Ben, Jamie, and Rachel, come on up to the table, please, for your introductions. I thought I had a Ben, a Jamie, and a Rachel. This is how we're going to take some time off of our program. We were scheduled to take a break at 15:15. We're a minute ahead of schedule. Are you okay if we break right now? We're going to take a 5-minute break, stretch your legs, recompose yourselves, and when we reconvene, we will have Stratham School Board candidates, Jessica, Jennifer, and Paul, up to the table. Beautiful. We'll see you in 5. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen. Bob, were you good in the back? Rolling. Okay, we are rolling. I know, like Bill, I'm always happy to have a microphone. Welcome for round 2. And I wanted to share with you, I had a couple of different questions after the first session about what exactly we were doing. And just to clarify again, there are three different entities tonight, and there will be 3 different ballots on Tuesday, and everyone who's speaking tonight, it will be on one of the ballots that Stratham voters will vote for. So the first group we heard from was from the cooperative school district, from the different representatives from the different towns. The next group is our Stratham school district, which is entity number 2. Just like the town, we have a town and we have a school. They have their own budgets, they have their own administrators, they have their own board. So, that being said, I would like to introduce the candidates for the Stratham School District. You guys, sorry, I didn't tell you. Microphone, flip the mic on. Whoever wants to start, it's a wild card on.
Where's on?
I'm going to say, that is on.
You want me to start?
Hog the mic.
Okay. My name's Paul Tassini. First, I want to confess something to you. Here I am in front of people that don't know me in the town in which I hope to spend the rest of my life. First impressions, right? The last time I was this nervous was when I met my wife's parents for the first time. It's true. If this sounds scripted, it's because it is. My wife and I retired to Stratham 3 years ago. As children, we were both taught to love God, family, and country. We have 2 grown sons and 2 grandchildren. I was raised in a blue-collar town called Medford, Massachusetts. I've learned a lot of you know that town. Medford has its estates area, but my father was a bus driver, so we lived close to West Medford, a very racially diverse neighborhood. There were almost 4,000 kids when I went to high school, over 950 in my class. Imagine that. Tail end of the baby boomers. We never thought much about it, but looking back, melting pot best describes Medford public schools at the time. I spent 45 years in high technology, interacting and visiting with design engineers all over the world. High tech is also very diverse in every respect, and I'm sure some of you know that. While my parents were forced to quit early, 3 generations of my family were educated in the public school system. Now retired, I just felt it was time to give back. If you want to know why I'm running at my age.
Paul, that was in 90 seconds.
Okay. So I got to stop.
Tell them who you are.
Okay. I got them right here. Keep going?
Guys, okay if we keep going?
Okay.
I don't
All right.
have any questions for these candidates right
Okay,
now, so
all right.
finish your intros.
My emphasis is on 2 issues, fiscal balance and using my private sector experience for the benefit of the school. And excellence in education. Today's SMS students will face global employment competition that makes what we as parents faced pale in comparison. America is losing the education race. A superior command of the basics at this level is absolutely paramount to prepare them for the next step and to ultimately grapple with AI, the next revolution that will change everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. That's the gong. The General Federation of Women's Club thought the gong was too big for tonight, so we're doing a phone, just a phone.
No gong. Hi, folks. My name's Jessica Kliski. I live on Portsmouth Avenue. I have an education bachelor degree in health arts and sciences, a certificate in health coaching, and associate's degree in business science. I work for a nonprofit in Portsmouth where I was born and raised, well, off and on born and raised. So I kind of have an idea of budgeting and accountability, which I think all of us are reasonably asking for through our school systems. And I'm currently, maybe until Tuesday, on the cemetery committee as chair. So I completely support public education. All 4 of my children went to public education schools, not in Stratham. I have 4 grandchildren. One is 20. She did go to Stratham Memorial School. I would pick her up after school so my daughter could work. I have 3 other grandchildren, that are young, 8 and under. None of them go to public school. And I'm curious as why. And my children just are not happy with the school system that they're living in. So instead of living my life, I am doing childcare when schools are, it's just challenging when your kids do not go to public school systems.
Thank you, Jessica. Jennifer.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for coming tonight. My name is Jennifer Scrafford, and I guess I'm an incumbent. I've been on the SMS school board for 2 years. I'm an attorney by training. I've done a lot of different stuff in this community. I was on the town budget advisory committee, the SAU 16 budget advisory committee. And even before I joined the board, I was recording secretary. So I was trying to calculate. I think I've probably been to about 100 SMS board meetings in my time. And I even had to take notes, so I actually had to listen at most of those meetings. I also volunteer quite a bit at SMS. The 5th grade committee, the Polar Challenge, in the classroom reading to the kids. I've had 3 kids go through SMS. I have an 8th grader, a 6th grader, and I have a 3rd grader there right now. So I've really enjoyed my time at SMS. I think there are many challenges, facing SMS, and I just felt like I needed some more time to kind of see through some of those challenges. On the board, on the current board, I've been serving in the communications. I also work with facilities. That building is more than 30 years old, so thinking about how we take care of that building. And just 2 other things I was going to mention, working with teachers on their sick bank and different things that they're trying to do within the classrooms is also things I've been doing. So thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. I apologize. I misspoke earlier. We have a stack of questions from the house.
Great.
So I wanted to start off with, in whichever order you'd like to respond, what do you see as the most pressing issue for the students at SMS or the Stratham Memorial School, and how would you address it as a board member? What do you see as the most pressing issue for the students at Stratham Memorial, and what would you do as a board member?
Well, as I was saying before, I think there's concern between parents and the school system as to exactly maybe some communication breakdown, and I'm running to learn because I'm I have the same questions you guys have. So putting myself in a parent's position as to is the education there? Are our tax dollars being put to the proper education that was pre-COVID, if we have to keep using that word? And why are children suffering from anxiety and this, that, and the other thing? And is it in our school system or is it at home? So those are the questions that I think parents have. And is it in our best interest to have our tax dollars go more towards, having teachers and counselors more and more, health issues addressed in the school and versus at home?
Paul Tassini, I would say the most pressing and urgent issue is giving these children a superior command of the basics in reading, writing, arithmetic, language, grammar, structure, those things that we all remember. It's absolutely paramount. How can I help? I see my role is helping get everything else out of the way, helping with school operating efficiency, getting the best value for the school, making it easy for the educators, those are the professionals, to feed these kids everything they need, give them a superior understanding, not just an adequate understanding, a superior understanding, so that when they take the next step, they just smoothly transition right into it.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Jennifer?
Yeah, thanks. Jennifer Scrafford. So I've thought about this question a lot, and I think I have a couple answers. The one thing that we've been working really hard on currently in the board is to look at data. So what is our student, what are they learning? How effective are they learning? What tools are in place? And what does the data support? So what SMS has been doing is really tracking each student inside each classroom, and every quarter seeing what their growth is. Every month we do presentations at the board where we ask the administration these hard questions, and they have to come and do a presentation for us on all different issues. And the data presentation was so interesting. And really what we've been finding is what tools work and how do we really increase student learning. I know for me, post-COVID, my third grader was in kindergarten. And boy, did she lose a lot, right? And so to catch her up, to make her excited about school, to make reading and math come easier, you got to look at the data. I think also increasing the efficiency of how we use our tax dollars, right? We see most of our tax dollars, almost 92%, is actually already contracted. So then what is that remaining 8%? How is it spent in the school? Is it spent in the most efficient ways? Again, referring back to the data collection that we're doing, is iReady working, right? Is that reading literacy tutor working? And so really looking hard and fast at the data. And then just final point I'm going to sneak in. The third thing that's really facing SMS is our building. I mean, nobody wants to build a new building, and neither do I. But are there renovations we can make that would keep that building going on? Right now, you have 2 boilers that are 35 years old. You know, there's no AC. We got to look at the roof. We got to look at parking. So, you know, really, that's going to be a big project of the board in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next question. How can the school board work to improve communication with the Stratham community? How can the school board work to improve communication with the Stratham community?
Well, working with nonprofits, you have to kind of be the face, right? You have to. I don't know what our email list is like, between parent and teacher. I do hear good and bad about that. So, but as far as the community goes beyond the parents, that's one reason why I'm sitting here, because I have to go searching for the information, or I hear it from a parent that has kids that no longer go to public school. They're on a wait list to go to another school. So I'm like, well, what is going on? What is happening? So I would like to help in that area. We do, I've done a lot of that communications myself. And honestly, I'm a senior too, so I mean, it's not easy for me to do what kids know how to do. How are they finding information that if they're 30 years old versus me at 60 something? So I feel like I have almost all the same questions that you guys are asking us. So I'd like to participate, if I get voted in correcting some of that barrier.
Thank you, Jessica.
How'd you make that in the 90 seconds? It's a great question. I think the turnout this past Tuesday demonstrated the town does not do a good job communicating with the voters. Websites are not the issue. We have websites. I can't figure them out either. And other people have told me they can't figure them out. But more than that, people are busy, okay? Out of sight, out of mind. So websites are good for some things. but not for this. We need to put our heads together on the board and come up with a system that reaches out and touches the voters. Okay? We need to be proactive and touch you and let you know, hey, there's something going on that needs your attention. Be there or be square. Okay? I don't know what that is just yet, but it clearly is not working as it is right now. Oh, sorry, Paul Tassini.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, communication is definitely a big issue. And before I joined the board, I was actually one of those parents so frustrated, right? Especially during COVID and trying to get information about when is the school going to open back up. And it was a really tough thing for me. And so it's always been a real priority for me. You guys might have gotten the SAU 16 survey that went out in January. And really what that was trying to do is ask, what works for you? You know, does your town have a newsletter? Are you on our Facebook? Is there a sort of unauthorized Facebook that you're using? You know, all of those questions, like what are those concrete places that we can reach out? Like I was referring to earlier, we do monthly discussions in each of our board meetings. These things are pretty great, right? So issues that are really kind of hard, like, for example, what is the food in the cafeteria and why can we improve that? Come and listen to that. What are progress reports and how are teachers filling them out and how are parents interpreting them? That's another monthly session. All of these are recorded on Zoom. And one of the things we're finding is really people are watching the Zooms. And so one of the things I really would love to do in the next term is improve the sound quality of those Zooms. Because right now, if you've been listening, like the audio is kind of stinky and like using the microphone is tough. So, just kind of continuing to improve that. We also have a 30-minute public input before at every board meeting, and I would welcome all of you to join us for those public inputs. The final thing I would just say is, when we talk about what does the building look like in the future, if I'm reelected, I'll be reaching out to people, and I would love to have any of you guys join and help us with those public listening sessions. And so you'll be seeing a lot of the SMS board.
Thank you, Jennifer. Related to the Stratham Memorial School, what is your position on banning books? And are there any particulars you'd like to discuss at the elementary school level?
My first word and thought is appropriate. I don't have kids in the school system, so I haven't taken myself to the library to see what books are available to the elementary age school kids. I think we all hear something, good and bad, that there's books that some parents do not want their children exposed to. I haven't seen them. I can look online like everybody else. That's one of the reasons why I'm running, because I have the same questions as everybody else, and I'm just really, really curious as to what the truth is. And I will ask hard questions of the administrative folks. Why is this book here, or who is it accessible to, and do the parents know about it?
Paul Tassini. See, I got that one. The material in the library should be there, number one, to help forward the students' understanding, knowledge base of their basic curriculum that I talked about a few minutes ago. That's number one. It should also have material that piques their interest and imagination in subjects like science, technology, geology, the study of the Earth's origin. Kids love dinosaurs. At least my grandson does. Other topics like that. And it should have a good amount of American literature, age appropriate, something that they can read with their parents and enjoy. Everything that I've read leads me to believe that no matter the intent, books that have sexually explicit material can seriously damage children of this age. I'm not in favor of it. Paul Tassini. I'm getting better at it.
Jennifer Scrafford. So I don't know who's been to SMS lately, but there actually isn't even a library. It's called the Learning Commons now, and there's pretty amazing stuff happening in that room. Really exciting, innovative stuff. And so I encourage everyone to check it out. In terms of looking at library books, a very important part of the board is we don't micromanage the teachers, right, or the principals. There's people far more educated than myself in childhood education there. So we really, at a high level, work on governance, kind of looking at the budget and policy. And so, we do have policies for how we look at books that are in the library. But, really, we also defer to all the people that are in that Learning Commons and really that this is their job. I understand, though, the nature of the question and I guess what's being asked. I'm definitely a parent that I would err on the side of reading it and then discussing it with my kid. I've never had a problem with that, and I would love my kid to, pick up a book that was exciting or different and talk to me about it. And so it's not something I worry about. I think there's great people in that Learning Commons controlling what people are reading. I think, my kids are smart enough to talk about it with me as a parent. And so I welcome that.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think that is going to close our questions for the Stratham Memorial School. Thank you, Paul, Jennifer, and Jessica. Or Paul, Jessica, and Jennifer. Thank you. Next, can I invite the Stratham candidates that are running for office in the town of Stratham? Come on down. Okay, starting off with our Stratham candidates. Stratham candidates, our expectation is that we are going to do a 90-second introduction or less like the other candidates have this evening. And again, just so everyone's on the same page still, we have heard from the Cooperative School District. We have heard from the Stratham Memorial, the elementary school. And these individuals are running for office here in the town of Stratham, our local government. Allison Knabb, would you please kick us off?
Sure, thank you. Can everyone hear me? I'm Allison Knabb. I'm running for the Select Board. Okay. I'm Allison Knabb. I'm running for Select Board. I have been on the town Select Board since 2018, so I think this will be my third term. I moved to Stratham about 15 years ago and immediately joined the Conservation Commission. And as I say in Stratham, if you keep showing up and you don't say no, you keep moving up. So I became the chair of the Conservation Commission. I ended up filling someone's term on the Select Board. And so I've been on it about 5 years now, and I'm excited to continue on it. I'm also your state rep, if you haven't met me. I haven't knocked on your door. I'm also the state rep for the town. So I'm excited to continue working on the Select Board. I love working with the other two Select Board members, Joe Anderson and Mike Houghton. And I have 2 daughters. They're both in the high school, and I think that's about all. Sorry, I don't have anything written. All right, thank you.
Let's go right down the line if you guys are. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Rosenthal. I'm a relatively new resident of Stratham, running for the library trustee, one of the positions. We moved, my family and I moved here in May. I have 2 kids who are in the public schools here, and my husband works in a local business. I'm a nurse by training. I haven't been working in the field super recently, but I also have a history of teaching the college level nursing students. And I just really love reading. I love the library, and I just wanted to participate in our town and try to help out where I could. So that's why I'm here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, good evening. I'm Heather Harvey. I'm also relatively new to Stratham. My husband is an Air Force pilot, and he's stationed at Pease. There's an active duty unit there again, so yay. And I'm running for Library Board of Trustees, as Sarah is, really because I'm passionate about the library. I'm passionate about literacy and education and community, and I think the library really does all of those things. It's sort of a good indicator for the health of a community, I would say. We've lived in a lot of places. I've seen a lot of libraries. I've used a lot of libraries, and I'm excited to, I know and love the librarians at Wiggin Memorial. I'm there a lot. I have 4 kiddos, and I'm just excited to help it keep running smoothly.
Hi, I'm June Sawyer. I'm running for cemetery trustee. I was cemetery trustee for 15 years, and I stepped down because of life changes in my household, but I totally and completely missed working on this committee and being involved. I was brought up in this town, and I was brought up that you give back to your community, and this is one thing that I know I can do. I've been a member of the Stratham Fire Department for 51 years, and I'm aging totally out of that, so I will have more time to dedicate to my other causes, and that's serving the town of Stratham.
Thank you. Thank you, June, for your service, too. I'm Connie Aubin-Adams. I'm running for re-election as supervisor of the checklist. I've been in Stratham for 24 years, moved here when my kids were little, touched everything. Class parent for every class they were in, member of the Arts Booster Committee, produced the ever-popular variety show at the elementary school for 10 years, went on to be a library alternate initially, and then served 2 terms, or 6 years, on the library board, and then was asked to fill a position of someone who moved out of town as supervisor of the checklist, and then have served 6 years as supervisor. The supervisor of the checklist position is 6 years long. It is a commitment. And actually, the state staggers it so that every even year, you're electing another supervisor of the checklist. There are 3 in your town. If one of us gets killed, there's still 2 to gets run over, where we make sure we do watch out for each other. But because they do that because it is a tremendously technical position. So outside of just what you might see us at, which is elections and appearing and checking off names or registering you, there's so much clerical back office procedure that goes on to keep our checklist clear, and to make sure that we are keeping up with all the new regulations that the state puts into place. So that's why I'm running again. Thank you.
James Scammon, 96 Portsmouth Ave, Stratham. During the 1960s, I grew up at Stratham Grocery, which is where the Stratham convenience store is now. And my mother was a supervisor of the checklist, and that's when I decided that's something I wanted to do when I grew up. And it's taken me this long to grow up, I guess. But My education is Stratham Memorial School, the Exeter High School, Phillips Exeter, Cornell, UNH. I have a bachelor's. I was a straight A student at the school, and that's the kind of work I do. So if the deal is, if you help me fulfill my bucket list and give me a vote, I'll give you the best job that can be expected as a supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And I'm going to end the lineup here as town moderator candidate. Yeah, I'm just going to sing to you, Jim. Yeah, my name's Dave Emanuel. I'm a lifelong resident here. I went to school on the other side of this wall in the Stratham Memorial School in the 80s. I came up through the scouting program. I'm currently the scoutmaster of the girls' troop and assistant scoutmaster of the boys' troop. I fill this role because it's something that I think is vitally important to continue the most purest form of democracy in our country, local government in the town meeting form. I attended Exeter High School in the University of New Hampshire. My dad's sitting in like the fifth row. By trade, I'm a professional engineer. By career right now, I am the fire chief for the town of Durham, New Hampshire, on the campus of the University of New Hampshire. I don't plan on growing up because I think it would be detrimental to my health. But I do enjoy public service and helping connect people to bring them together to solve problems together as a community. And I take a lot of pride in what we create in Stratham. So we move forward together to do great things to support the generations that have been here, as well as the generations that are growing up. I have an 11, 13, and 15-year-old. That was my kid that looked like me at the end of the line. The other two had homework and they couldn't join us tonight. Thank you for your help. And yeah, thank you for your support. I have a few questions, transitioning back to the moderator of tonight's event. I know, I'm looking at them. Supervisors, do you see any challenges with the supervisors of the checklist candidates? And, I had forgotten, as a consummate student of government, I had forgotten this was a 6-year term, which, from a moderator standpoint, I'd consider that a sentence, not a term. But I appreciate both of you running for office. I know, and for those of you that don't know, each of these different positions has a different role in the government. Whether it's overseeing, the supervisors and the clerk are responsible for the ballots and registering voters. The moderator is responsible for conducting the election procedures. With the town body, you are the legislative branch of our government, and the Board of Selectmen down at the end they are responsible for conducting the daily affairs with our town administrator. So, supervisors, do you see any challenges with determining if an applicant is legally qualified to vote, and how will you solve that? How do you determine if a candidate is legally qualified to vote?
We have strict rules that we follow with respect to registrations, and we also all review the registrations that are accepted because we do have people assisting us at different times. So we review all registrations, and if there's any issue or question with a registration, we look to resolve it. Maybe it's something that we can't read, and we need to reach out to the registrant because their writing was something we couldn't determine. There's many different reasons, but there's clear-cut procedures set out by the state that you follow if something like that occurs.
Thank you, Connie.
I've never done the job before. However, I do have a lot of respect for Melanie McGrail, who is one of the supervisors. And so I'll be looking forward to her instruction if I get the job. I also have the election manual. It's a book this thick, so there's a lot to read. And so I'm going to be plenty busy with that, I'm sure. Thank you.
It's great reading. And there's a lot of online training. It's a good ride. All joking aside, every decision we make in local government, most of them are governed by the state's the state has guidance how our meetings will be conducted, how the moderator is elected, how the supervisor is elected, how you register a voter, how you don't register a voter. The state sets out the laws and regulations for how this works and what each of our positions does. Library trustees. Are there any changes that you foresee for the library during your term? Is part one. And part two, if you were to get a really cool grant, what's the first thing you'd do? So changes that you'd like to see happen at the library, or if you received a lump of money, what would you do with it?
Well, I can't speak specifically to any changes because we've really enjoyed our experience so far. I should have added when I introduced myself that my background, I have a JD, so I went to law school and I have a history degree. I have attended some of the meetings. I feel like I could contribute there by helping review policy. So I think the change I would make is just expedite the policy review, which I think everybody would be glad for, the staff and both the board. So I think that would be the change I would make. Just speed things along there, help with that process by being a set of eyes and somebody who is not bored by reading policy. And a fun grant, I have small children, so of course I would be hoping Rhonda, the children's librarian, would spend it on something for the kids. However, I also really do believe that the library is a reflection of the community and what the people need. So I would probably just be asking the staff, hey, what are people coming in for? What do they want? I know we have a big gardening club. I know we have a lot of culinary interest. And I would say, whatever we have the most interest in, let's throw the money at that. Let's hope that happens. That would be a lovely scenario.
Yeah, thank you, Heather.
Hi, Sarah Rosenthal again. So I can't think either of any specific changes that I would like to see right now. I just think my experience thus far has been great. And so I don't have any specific feedback on that at this point. But in terms of if we received a grant, that would be amazing. I think maybe that's something that I can help with on the board also, is looking to see where we can, if there's grant funding that we can look at. But I would love to see what the library staff and the library patrons really think is needed at the library. So usually that's something you kind of do before you get the grant. So really if we're looking at grants, I would like to find out from the library staff and patrons what they feel is needed, and that would help us target where we're going to be looking for grants. But if we got some magical money that had no restrictions on it, I think we would need to start by asking the community, the people who use the library and the people who work at the library, what they need and what they want.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question was back to the supervisors of the checklist.
We're ready.
Are there any improvements to the current system that you would like to implement?
There are many changes coming. The state is actually implementing or converting to a new system to maintain all of the voter information system. I've been involved in the beta testing, which has been fabulous because we have an opportunity to say what we want from the system. So the system we've been working with to maintain all of your information is quite old, and they've done a lot of patches to try to get us the information to provide the reporting, which is really the crux of everything. Everyone understands, everyone in this room has seen how voting in elections and the scrutiny of elections has changed in the last 6-8 years. And everybody is looking for instant reporting. And that's a challenge. So the state is looking to work with us as we have implemented many things locally to be able to give you that accurate reporting more quickly, which is the goal. I've done a lot of spreadsheets. I've been able to help with automation and to do some templates and to do some just simple things that can help, that we run the checklist on, that help our ballot clerks at the end of the day do the counting. So there are a number of ways that we've already implemented to improve things, and we'll continue to do that and work with Concord to do that as well. Thank you.
My concern is people that are on the checklist that have moved out of town. If they're not a resident of Stratham, they shouldn't be voting here. That's the state law. And so the improvement that I would suggest is removing people from the checklist that do not live here.
Yeah, please, Connie.
There is a new process that was implemented by the state where we get, well, actually, there's two processes. We get local property transfers. They're PA 34s. They come to me. I review them because sometimes you're just moving your property into a trust, and so obviously we're not going to kick you off the checklist for that. But if you've sold your property, you're getting a letter from me. It's called a 30-day letter, and you need to respond and prove that your domicile is still in Stratham. So that's something we do on a local level, and the state has also implemented something where we now get the NCOA, or the National Change of Address listing. Comes right out of the post office, and if you have changed your address in the post office and you say, I'm no longer here, or please send my mail to South Carolina, you're going to get a letter as well, unless we have determined that you've changed your address to a post office box, and working with the town clerk, we can show that you are still domiciled in Stratham. So these are some of the other clerical things. I think I sent out 400 letters last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Jim. Library trustees. Two-part question. What do you see as the most important work of the position that you seek, and how much time do you envision to spend as a trustee? What's the most important work for the position that you seek, and what kind of time do you think it will take?
Well, in terms of the most important work, I think that has to be bigger picture, because I'm not in the trenches doing it yet, so I cannot speak to the specifics. And I think we've both really spoken and covered that, just keeping the library running, making the library accessible, helping the library to be involved, and serving the community. And that answer kind of has to be big picture at this point. In terms of time devoting to it, the board meets once a month, but I anticipate at least several other additional hours, I don't know, during that month. We're not going to just show up at the board meeting. There's going to be preparation, things that we need to read beforehand, and the time it's going to take is the time it takes. If the policy is long, it'll be longer preparation time. If we need to meet beforehand to discuss things so that the meeting can move efficiently, we'll be doing that. I feel well suited for this because I'm not practicing law right now. I'm home with my kids, two of whom are at school. So I feel like I have the time to devote to it, and I'll take the time that it takes.
Thank you. Hi, Sarah Rosenthal again. I also agree that in terms of the work, it's I'm not in that yet either. I've just attended a few of the meetings to kind of see what it was about, but basically just to help support the library and make sure that it's accessible to our residents and meets the needs of the residents of our town. The amount of time, I, having taught at college before, have some experience on boards, not boards, but committees and things of that nature, and so I also am aware that that there is some preparation that goes into being ready for the meetings, preparing in advance so that you can discuss the topics at hand. And so I do anticipate there will be some additional meetings outside of the once a month board meeting, and I'm prepared to be able to take the time that is needed for that as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Allison, Sarah, Heather, June, Connie, Jim.
Questions for Dave?
No, Allison and I get off easy on this one, and June does as well. It's we're trying to focus our questions on the races that had opposition as opposed to the unopposed races. So we're just investing our time best we can. Thank you for joining us tonight. And our next set, thank you. I wanted to ask David Moore, our town administrator, and planning director, Mark Connor, to provide some key points on regarding our presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank the Wiggin Memorial Library for the invitation this evening to present the warrant articles that will be at the Saturday business session of town meeting. My name is David Moore. I'm the town administrator. I'm going to do a very brief introduction here, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark Connors, Director of Planning and Community Development. And he's going to take us through the zoning articles that have been prepared by the planning board and that will appear on your ballot for the Tuesday session. Mark will cover the articles that will be covered on the Tuesday section, and I'll be covering the articles that will be done at the in-person town meeting on Saturday the 16th at 9 a.m. at the Memorial School. My compliments to the Wiggin Memorial Library. I would note that we are nearly right on time. And to the moderator, who's done a great job this evening. I represent, in the role as town administrator, the staff person helping to support our select board, our three-person select board, our chair, Mike Houghton, our vice chair, Allison Knabb, and our select board member, Joe Anderson, who's also in the audience this evening. We are a little bit low-tech today, which I actually prefer, and perhaps you do too. No slides, and there's two reasons for that. One is we wanted to accommodate the turnout that was achieved tonight, which I think is fantastic. Number two, this is designed to be more brief than I would otherwise give a presentation on the warrant articles. And the reason for that is Mark and I have both sat for pre-recorded tapings of a more robust and longer, more detailed presentation on the town warrant articles in particular. So I intend purposefully, and I have to request the organizers to kind of stay high on providing an orientation to the content of the warrant articles for the business session on the Saturday, and Mark is going to do similarly with the articles for the election. In your packet, very quickly, I've covered the top. The second slide on the first page is, as hopefully you already know, as we've been quite disciplined in doing this for a number of years in a row, we're trying to put as much information easily accessible about town meeting in one place year after year. So at that 2024 tab on that home screen will get you to the next page. We will see a list of the types of things we have available online for you, including the videos of Mark and I doing this presentation, as well as much more. If you're particularly interested in budget issues, I'd recommend the executive summary and preliminary line item budget that we have there, and you'll see others information there as well. Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you for the zoning articles.
Great. Thanks, David. So as David mentioned, I'll try to be brief tonight. I apologize. I know most of you are here hoping I talk for a couple hours about zoning amendments, but I'll try to be as brief as possible. And as David mentioned, if you're interested in reading more about a particular amendment, all of the amendments are on the town meeting page, as well as there's a longer presentation from myself explaining what they do. So this year there's 9 articles on the town ballot that relate to zoning. These are all amendments that are proposed and supported by the planning board. So I'll just run through each of those with you briefly. Article 2 is a housekeeping amendment. It would address a couple definitions that we don't have good definitions for in the zoning ordinance. One is for mixed-use development, and the other is for a half-story, which is when you have a pitched roof building, that top story. And additionally, there'd be some minor changes to the definition of structure to ensure consistency with the latest changes to the building code. Article 3 is a proposed amendment to the building ordinance. This amendment would clarify that the building inspector, if you file a building permit application, could request a plot plan or some kind of plan stamped by a professional if there was a reasonable basis to question whether or not your permit complied with the zoning or with the building code. So a couple examples of that would be to make sure that if you're proposing an accessory structure that you're keeping that building outside of a wetland setback. There's also a requirement in Stratham in residential zones that not more than 20% of your lot be made up of buildings. Once you get past that, approximately past that number, you start to have issues with drainage and water quality, so we want to make sure that you're staying below that. And sometimes you need a plan to kind of confirm that you are if you're proposing a big accessory building on your property. So that's Article 3 in a nutshell. Article 4 relates to home occupations. To clarify, these are small businesses that operate out of homes. So this is not working from home. We don't require a permit to do that. You're free to do that, of course. It's if you're operating a business where you have employees coming to your residence, or if you have customers actively coming to your property. So it might be like a small kind of barber, or we've had doggy daycares, lots of kind of small businesses that don't conflict with the character of a residential district. Currently, the town requires that home occupations renew their permit every 3 years. So this article just spells out the process for that. We didn't really have a good description of how people should go about renewing their permits. It caps the size of home occupations at 1,000 square feet. So there's currently a requirement that your home occupation can't exceed 25% of the floor area of your home. And believe it or not, there's some homes that are much bigger than 4,000 square feet. So we just want to make sure that the business is consistent with a residential zone. So we don't want too large of a business. Once you get past 1,000 square feet, you might want to consider moving into a commercial district. So that's Article 4 in a nutshell. Article 5 deals with conditional use permits. That's a very common application the planning board reviews. I would say this falls under that umbrella of a housekeeping amendment. Currently, for every application, there's 11 criteria the applicant has to meet. So the planning board has to go through all 11 criteria, make sure the application meets those criteria. But a lot of the language is very similar. It takes a long time for the board to get through it. So this is really to the benefit more of the planning board to help expedite some of these reviews. I don't think we're losing any of the criteria that the planning board's looking at when they review these applications. It's more just to kind of consolidate that and keep things as efficient as possible. Article 6 relates to cluster open space subdivisions. These are pretty popular in Stratham. These are where you can have smaller lots, but you have to set aside some land for conservation or open space. This article, if it's passed, would establish some minimum lot sizes. We don't currently have a minimum lot size for these types of developments. It would establish some additional requirements associated with the vegetated buffer. That's existing requirements. You need 50 feet on the exterior property lines where you're not disturbing. If there's existing woodland, or you're not. The idea is to kind of create a buffer between the development and the abutting properties. We've had some challenges because sometimes these can be over individual lots, and people think it's part of their backyard, so they'll clear it out, and the neighbors will complain, and it's kind of been a returning issue. So the idea is to require that buffer area be part of the HOA land, so not be part of individual properties. The HOA would be in charge of maintaining it. The next change would require that the open space parcel, so that conservation land, not be made up of more than 20% wetland. We'd like that land to be usable for recreation or things of that nature. And finally, if there's a historic building on the property that's being proposed for a cluster development, This would require that the building be preserved, if at all possible, and incorporated into the development. Article 7 relates to small accessory structures or sheds. So these are your typical small shed is 120 square feet, 10 by 12. This would allow for reduced side or rear setbacks. So you could be up to 5 feet from the rear side property line, or up to 15 feet from a wetland, as long as the shed is not on a permanent foundation and it's not more than 12 feet tall. Article 8 deals with maximum residential densities in commercial districts. So the town allows for increased densities in the commercial zones for residential. If it's part of a mixed-use development, this requirement would just clarify that wetlands, steep slopes, areas that are protected by conservation easements, they can't be included as part of that maximum density calculation. And it would also reduce the maximum density in the Route 33 Heritage District to 2 units per acre. That's still a bit of a bonus from our other residential zones. So that district has a lot of historic buildings. We think it still maintains an incentive for people to rehabilitate historic buildings for new uses. But the 2 units per acre is a little bit more consistent with the surrounding residential neighborhoods. Article 9 deals with small-scale solar energy systems. So these are ground-mounted systems. Any ground-mounted system in Stratham requires approval by the planning board. If this article were to pass, some systems you'd be able to build without needing to go for planning board approval. If the array was in your backyard, has to be a certain amount of feet from your property line, and it can't involve any clear cutting or removal of trees on the property line. So if you met those requirements, you could build the solar array with the building permit instead of having to go through the planning board process. Article 10 is the last zoning amendment on the ballot this year. It deals with accessory outside storage. So these are metal storage containers or semi-trailers, so the back part of a tractor trailer, or large campers and RVs. This would require that those types of things be in the backyard or be screened in some way. It would exempt RVs or campers that are roadworthy, so as long as you have a active state registration and you're up to date with your state inspections, you wouldn't have to screen your camper. So that's all of the zoning amendments on the ballot this year. Any questions? Yes.
Article 9, does it apply to condos?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm sorry, I just had a follow-up. The condo association, it says a matter of right, so the condo association couldn't say you can't do that if it meets the criteria.
Well, it depends where it is. If it's on condo, if it's on land that's owned by the condo association, the association would have to sign off on it. Yep.
Would you repeat the question?
Sure.
The same question on Article 9. What about those that are already in, like that people already have these large gargantuous things in front of their house right now? Would they have to comply with this, or are they grandfathered in?
So the question was about existing solar facilities, if they have to comply with the regulation. No, the answer is they would, if they're existing, they probably went through a process or they were built before the town regulated them. So this would be for any future solar array. Yep.
On Article 6.
Yep.
Did I hear correctly that we currently do not have a minimum lot size?
So not for cluster developments. So what happens is the developer
Sorry, give me 1 second, Mark. It's hard to hear you in TV land.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
On Article 6, I wanted to clarify that we do not currently have a minimum lot size.
That's correct for cluster developments. So what happens when those kind of developments come in, the developer has to do something called the yield plan. So that shows what the development would be with the 2 acre minimum lot size. And that's your kind of yield plan, so that's your maximum number of lots. And then the reason these developments are popular in Stratham is because the developer, if he does certain things, can get bonuses for density if he agrees to do certain things. So that can get you can get extra density by doing that. So it might be a little bit more than that 2 acres. But then what happens sometimes is there's really big open space lands, so they have really small lots. So the current requirement, there's no requirement on that minimum lot size. So we have some that are just half an acre, for example, whereas this would require an acre if you have a well and septic on your property, an acre, and then less, depending on what other utilities you have on the lot.
I would think we would not want to be any smaller than that, than an acre, acre.
Yes.
I understood that, like previously we had a 1 acre minimum, but it also included pretty much, to meet the 1 acre, we basically owned part of the recreational area.
Yes. So the individual lot owned by the homeowner could be, like I said, there's some examples where it's just a half an acre. And we run into some issues because people like to do typical things you see in Stratham, like put in a pool or a detached garage. And on a half acre lot, that gets increasingly difficult to do. So we think this is kind of more consistent with what you see in Stratham.
One more question. I'm pretty loud.
Well, it's just you.
All right, so real quick, out of all of these, which one has given you the most angst, where people came to you and just had a lot of questions, a lot of issues, and you really had to work hard through it?
Good question. So some years we propose like big changes to the ordinance. I'd say this year there's no like massive change. Yeah, lots of clarifications. Maybe Article 3. I think some people get a little nervous about the idea of having to have a plan drawn up by a surveyor. But I would emphasize that this is only in kind of those sticky situations where we're really unsure if it meets the requirements. So, yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mark and David. So that was, to be clear, those are the articles that will be on the ballot. Sure. It'd be right there, Denise, on the ballot on Tuesday at the polls. The portion of the articles that Mark just reviewed will be on a paper ballot at the polls on Tuesday. I'm differentiating between different parts of the presentation. Denise, what do you got? Hang on.
Can you all hear me? I think you can. For the cluster subdivisions, the vegetative buffer, the screenings, is there a mechanism in place that just say a cluster subdivision gets approved now and they have an HOA, and then 10 years from now there's no HOA? They just kind of like disband and become just homes, and they cut vegetation. Is there anything in place to sort of force these cluster subdivisions to make sure that they have HOAs in place in perpetuity of this approval? Because there's a lot of subdivisions in town that don't have HOAs.
Yes.
And no oversee.
Yep. Not under this article, but the current subdivisions we're approving now, there's so many more requirements now with like stormwater that, yes, I think you'd have to have an active HOA in order to be able to monitor those things.
The HOA is a homeowners association. Yes. Thank you, Mark.
Yep. So it's not addressed under this particular article, but we've made a lot of changes to our land use regulations, especially dealing with stormwater, where the association has to submit reports annually to us. So for all the new subdivisions, yes, you have to have an association.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you, Denise. Any other questions on the front half of the?
Denise made me ask this.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you, Denise.
No, so you mentioned that for new subdivisions, there needs to be an HOA. So if a subdivision went in when, just out of curiosity?
Well, I'd say the biggest change in recent years has been the stormwater requirements. The town's under some federal requirements we have to meet first for drainage and stormwater. So I would say, particularly within the last 3 years, that's picked up.
Definitely need to talk to you after this meeting.
Okay. And David's going to take over for Articles 11 through 15.
Great job, Mark. Thank you very much. So just to refocus now, we're now at Saturday, 9 o'clock at the Memorial School at 39 Gifford Farm Road. And there are 5 articles on that warrant that will be acted upon. There's a summary here of them on page 8 of the handout I gave you. The first 4 should look very familiar to you because they are the same type of article, the same subject matter of article, in the same order that you have seen for quite a number of years, and I think definitely in I think this is my 6th town meeting. So I'm going to be covering those. This year, we don't always have a petitioned article on the warrant, but we do this year, and the moderator will be addressing that afterwards. But just for context, I've listed it here, but I won't be speaking to it. Moving on to Article 12, which is the 2024 operating budget, and is always the operating budget. This slide is intended to give you a snapshot of the picture of our budget and its impact to you for 2024. $8.5 million is what the Select Board has proposed following its process with the Budget Advisory Committee and its work with the department heads and staff. That's an increase of $270,000, or about 3.3% over last year. So that Article 12 is the major driver of your property tax that you pay in Stratham. We add on to that funds that I will speak to in separate articles associated with the Capital Improvement Fund and the Capital Reserve Funds. And so there are slight changes in those this year. And then we have an increase in revenue due to a variety of factors, the most substantive of which is an increase in interest earnings on our funds. So this is a very important bullet here. I've separated it out because it explains when you look at all of the expenditures that are proposed for this town meeting on Saturday, all of the expenditures with the operating budget, the capital improvement funds, the capital reserve funds, together with all of our revenues, we need to raise through taxation with this level of spending some $5.1 million. That's an increase of $71,000 over last year, or a 1.39% increase, 1.4% increase in what needs to be raised from taxes beyond what we raised last year. That is the snapshot of your the operating budget, and I'll provide a little bit more detail about how we got there next. The next slide gives you something that, based on my most recent statements, might sound intuitive. This is a snapshot of the tax rate history from this current from 2019 to 2023 and 2024. You can see from 2023 to 2024, we aren't at this time projecting a need to increase the rate that you pay to the town for the town services. So that's $3.15. Now, you might be saying, you know very well, and I realize that your tax rate is $18.95. That means that all the spending that will be considered and approved at this town meeting totals $3.15 on your tax rate. That's about 15% of your tax bill. That goes to fund all of the services, to plow your roads, pick up your trash, maintain and provide your library, a police department, the Stratham Volunteer Fire Department, the Stratham Hill Parks, all of our parks, playgrounds, public properties, and the programming associated with our Parks and Recreation Department are all included in that 15% of the tax bill that you pay each year. You hopefully, you are recipients of the biweekly newsletter that the select board sends out. If you have been watching that, you know that 2024 is a revaluation year where we will be going through the process required in law to bring the assessed values up to 100% of market rate. That doesn't mean that we raise more money as a result of the reval. It means that we divide that $5.1 million that we need to raise over likely a larger overall base valuation. So the tax rate, that's a long way of saying the tax rate is going to change, and it's not going to look like this $3.15 rate. It's likely going to go down. But you can see just by looking at this 2024 rate, which we've provided here so that you have the apples to apples comparison, that we are not, that we're the real additional municipal effort on the municipal side is 1.4% that we're raising in needed funds. Budget drivers. This is a pretty simple picture this year. You might be able to tell from a 1.4% increase in the municipal effort overall and a 3.3% increase in the operating budget that this is a maintenance budget. It's a continuation of the high level of services and that are being provided right now through your same level of services. But as you know, costs do change. So there are no new major initiatives, no new programs. We're talking about maintaining the current level of service going forward in another year. One of the big stories of our budget planning this year is a very familiar story for anyone who has been in the business of employing people or reading newspapers. And that is what has been happening with disruption in the labor market and lots of changes. We are making the types of changes that your companies and your employers are changing in order to retain and recruit the appropriate talent you need to offer the services that you want to continue to provide at a high level. So I have some categories of the types of things we're doing to constantly assess our market competitiveness with wages and meet other needs in managing a staff. There's modest increases related to contracted services and our assessing function in particular. And then there was a 15.3% increase in our health insurance premiums this year. That sounds like a big hit, and it is. But every year in that health insurance number, there are changes. There are changes in census, the types of plans people use. We have more people choosing to get our health insurance buyout as opposed to our traditional health insurance offering. So we're able to manage that. That's on top of some work that hopefully you've heard me speak to over the last 2 years about our efforts to introduce deductible plans to Stratham, which have been in place now, and continuing to provide value as well as cost effectiveness. The next slide is just a picture of where we've been with annual operating budget increases over time. The bottom right figures there show that the annual average growth of that time that is shown is at 2.74%, and once again, the annual change year over year is 3.3%. That is the operating budget. Article 12. Excuse me. Article 11. The capital improvement program is Article 12. This year, there's an increase in this ask of $15,000. The next slide just points out that page in the annual report where you can see in more detail about the types of projects that are identified. This is a 6-year outlook of projects that need regular investment. We really try to keep this article at a consistent level from year to year. planning out the needs for replacements of equipment and other investments so that we avoid spikes in the tax rate, and the capital plan helps us do that. Highlights of that request for 2024 are on page 11. You can think we've got townwide technology investments, keeping up with our infrastructure for cybersecurity enhancements and related upgrades. We have vehicles that we maintain, that we need here in the town, police cruisers. There's a ballot machine replacement that we are funding through the capital plan of some $14,000 to replace 2 machines. Some of you who have been following that effort know that the state of New Hampshire is moving forward to replace, require the replacement of the optical scanners that have been in place since sometimes the 1990s. There's a very robust process being carried out by the Ballot Law Commission for that, and we expect that as early as this year we could need those funds in order to move forward there. Environmental permitting and compliance is a big piece of the capital improvement plan. You know that we are spending funds each year to maintain and perform under our groundwater management permit for our PFAS site in our town center. We have other stormwater compliance that's required under federal regulation. We have funds associated with our property revaluation. We fund that through our capital plan for those unique 5-year costs that come up and would otherwise spike our budget. You see investments there in HVAC, the library website, and we're beginning a process of looking at improvements to Stevens Park. We had a meeting about that recently. The initial meeting, the amount you see in the plan this year is intended to build towards essentially building savings in order to move that forward in a future year. Article 13 is the next warrant article. And this is where the town appropriates funds to be deposited in capital reserve funds. In New Hampshire, these capital reserve funds, the town meeting must vote to appropriate funds into them. And then you have designated through those town votes agents to expend those funds. In many cases here, they're the select board. The story I think to remark upon for this year is that fire and highway are the 2 funds that are recommended to receive contributions into, both at $125,000. All told, this is about $35,000 less than last year. These tools are a best practice in municipal government for ensuring that you're planning for the end of the useful life of your rolling stock, things like your plow trucks and your fire trucks. You can imagine those investments at fire truck at $1 million a pop. You want to avoid having big surprises or big jumps in your tax rate in any given year. Setting aside funds on a continual basis, and this funding level about 125 has been consistent over the last several years, smooths out those impacts and ensures that you have the funds available to maintain a high level of services when that equipment needs to be replaced at the end of its useful life. On the next page, you have a little bit more detail about what the outlook is for the Capital Reserve Fund for fire. There's a lot of activity in that in the last 2 years. Ambulance purchase, which is 100% funded with ambulance revenues, but I have it in here to remind people that we've purchased it and it's coming. That fire purchase was authorized in 2023, and the way things are going, as we were warned, it's a 2025 delivery. So those purchases have happened, and we're beginning to rebuild the fund through these investments over time in order to meet the next needs. And I've got 2 of those listed there in the fire department. The next Capital Reserve Fund, same article. The next Capital Reserve Fund is the Public Works Capital Reserve Fund. There's a larger balance in there. We have some bigger purchases coming up in the next this year and next year. And you can see planning for those items out in the future as well. Same concept, smoothing out what would otherwise be investments required all at one time. Article 14 is the last article I'll speak to, and perhaps the most boring, but an important financial housekeeping matter. I've spoken to you about capital reserve funds and appropriating funds into the capital reserve fund and having agents to expend, like a select board, to vote to expend them. In a special revenue fund, a dedicated revenue source goes into the fund, like funds for our ambulance fees, and the town meeting, the legislature, must vote to appropriate those funds out. So that's what we bring to you each year. We operate this fund. We put about our revenues, ambulance revenues, about $160,000 each year. Every year we recommend to you appropriation for these types of expenditures. And then when it comes time for an ambulance to come up and be replaced, sometimes other additional equipment, depending on the health of the fund, we're able to spend out of that special revenue fund, and we manage it in a sustainable way to ensure that that delivers for you on that ambulance fund when the time comes. New wrinkle on this one this year, I think, is a very good development of having costs and associating them directly with a revenue source. We have for years funded our EMS supplies out of our operating budget. That means that we are raising money to meet that expense in the operating budget. With this special revenue fund, with its performance, there's no need to raise funds from the public for this expense directly related to the ambulance. So we've added that to this list this year at $16,500, and it allows us to manage that ask, that municipal tax effort required, that allows us to get to 1.4% year over year. So, Mr. Moderator, I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have.
This is probably a dumb question, so I'll admit that up front. You know, I'm looking at like what the increase will be, like 1.39%, right? You said it's a reevaluation year, but then I also go to the school board meeting, and there might be increases there, and there's increases here and there. Does anyone, is it the finance position, or who can tell me what the overall increase to our taxes will be based on all these crazy things we're voting on?
Right. That is an excellent question, and a complex one, and one that we have worked to get closer on as a town in the last year alone. The short answer is there is a lot of inputs and outputs associated with creating that dollar figure that are challenging to project in a responsible way. And what we've tried to do as a town is provide you with the best information that we can, with the information that we control and that we have readily available. So that's what I would say for you for the 15% of your tax bill. There is a period during the course of the year where that becomes more accessible. I don't know the exact point of during the year that is, but I think it's before you receive your final tax bill. I'm sure of that, and I think the learning for all of the people who serve in these roles at each level of government that you have here have realized that is part of communicating about these financial decisions, and that is why you see the second slide of mine associated with the tax rate. It is a challenging picture for the other jurisdictions. I understand that. So I would really defer to them and their processes for that. But we all serve the same people, and we are open to helping communicate accurate information that can be done responsibly without raising expectations or misleading based on estimates or unknowable information at the time that we want it.
So can I follow up?
Sure.
So I think you all do a great job. I mean, and I'll be the first to admit, I just woke up when I got my last tax bill. But that's all. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if I can be a volunteer and help pull your information with the school board information with someone else, because I just don't feel as a town we should get our tax bill and be in shock all the time. So yeah, you're 1%. You do a great job at that. And the school board does 4% and they do a great job at that. And then the reassessment comes over and clubs you over the head, and then someone else comes in. How do we sort of get ahead of this? We're in the 2024. How do we communicate to all these people here or anything? Like, we can't all come to every meeting, as much as I'd like to. How do we do that? There's got to be a way.
Well, your comment is a variation on a theme I hear in many places, and it's one that we spend a lot of. I can tell you that your select board spends a lot of time thinking about and working towards. We have a communication device that is the one that we control and we have the most consistency with, and that is our select board newsletter. You have been hearing about the revaluation in this town, and you'll be hearing more as we move forward. What will it mean? What will it mean for people? What doesn't it mean? We will know the tax rate information in October before those November bills arrive, so long as the county and everyone else gets their stuff into the Department of Revenue Administration and we get there. So your point is taken. We can't communicate enough. I also would encourage people, if they have specific questions, to reach out. And hopefully we can help. But each year around this time, we are able to project, and we've been pretty good at this, what the municipal rate is going to be come November with this information at meetings like this.
Hi, my question is about page 8, lower box, the operating budget. With all the new construction in town, the dermatology building next to Market Basket, how is that additional tax revenue figure into this box? You've got, an additional burden of $71,000. I would think that the new revenue would easily cover that.
Right. So the operating budget alone is going up $270,000. The revenue here that is in here is your motor vehicle taxes and other and building inspection fees and others. This does not in here. The revenues are associated with those types of revenues. They're not associated with the property tax revenue. The property tax revenue is what is going to make up that $5.1 million. Now, you've asked a very good question, because I projected a tax rate for you here, which means I needed to have the total base valuation of the town in order to do that. And the assumption I used this year is always a very conservative one about new value added from year to year. So there is an assumption of new value added, and that's in there. And I can assure you it's conservative. And just for the sake of clarity, and to repeat the earlier point about the reval, that base valuation, which is some $1.6 billion, is going to change when we do a new market valuation. So the whole base number is going to change, but it's not going to change what we're needing to raise through the taxes, the $5.1 million.
Hey, thank you, Dave. When I this morning I looked at the MS 636 form. I always go to the back page, which summarizes kind of what you're talking about, and I compared it to last year's. And actually, I got a better message that it was only going to increase the amount to be raised by less than $3,000 less. And I guess the difference really, because you have 71,000, 72,000, because that's total. I guess the MS 636, that's the form that goes to the Department of Revenue. They're the ones who set the rates. And that includes the ins and outs of the other funds, I think, and that's probably the difference.
That's right.
Correct. And I just wanted to make sure when I should be comparing it to last year's budget I should compare. I was comparing it to last year's MS 636 to this year's, and again, the message is even better when you do it. It's all I want to.
Well, thanks for pointing that out. Mr. Abrami is referring to a New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration form that every municipality in New Hampshire uses and is required to use. It is not the public document that is the most transparent and understandable for people who are trying to do what you guys are doing tonight. And I think Pat put his finger on it. We have a variety of funds. We had a $970,000 number on that MS 636 last year for that fire department because the accountants say that's what you need to do. Even so. I would, if you want to compare year to years, there's a resource for that on our website, and that is in this executive summary and preliminary budget document. Right. You will see a spreadsheet of our 2024 proposed budget, and you'll be able to look back to at least 2023. That's one way of comparing year to year.
But again, I just compared it to last year's annual report, and it seemed even better than. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Denise, I'm coming.
I'll agree with, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. The communication, has there been any forward thinking on putting meetings out on YouTube where people can watch them after the fact? Because I know I've had a lot of people say to me, the select board newsletter is great. It gives you a snapshot, but it doesn't give you a lot of the explanation of what actually happens with the discussion. So the meetings going online, maybe it would give the residents an opportunity to go and watch that, jot their questions down, get them answered prior to having it come straight at them at one time.
So the question was, has there been discussion about it? It comes up from time to time.
No, putting the meetings online.
Recorded
YouTube,
meetings. Yes.
Recorded meetings.
Right.
Yep.
So the question was, has there been discussion about putting the recordings of meetings online?
Yes.
Oh, the audio recordings?
Or just video recordings,
Okay.
YouTube.
So there-
of all the planning board, school board, zoning board,
Right.
board of selectmen.
So the question was, has there been discussion? Yes. Occasionally, it is not one that is under discussion at this time. It could be by appealing to your select board members about the desire. You could put that on the topics. I want to be fair to the schools. They definitely have the extra public media option available on YouTube. We are, these videos, we've received great feedback on the videos that we've done these last 2 years to make this conversation accessible at any time that people want to. So we're trying to do that. So I hope that answers your question about where it is.
To have it out there throughout the year instead of 2 weeks before voting day.
Thank you, Denise. Well, I appreciate everybody hanging on tonight. I wanted to throw a special kudos and thanks to the Wiggin Memorial Library, Carrie, General Federation of Women's Club for taking care of our timing and our questions, the students from the high school, Exeter TV, and Blue Hawk Media for making this a recordable event that we can broadcast and share, as well of our candidates and question askers. Sorry, there was one more thing. At 8:20, we were going to talk about the citizen petition article. Is there anyone here who signed the petition who would like to speak on the article? Okay. Can I answer any questions about the petition article? I'm sorry? Came a number of concerned citizens, 30 concerned citizens, filed a petition to make Stratham a hand count town, to say we should not use our optical scanning ballot counting devices that the state of New Hampshire asks us to use. Well, 30 people asked us to look at this and as a town make a decision. So, as your town moderator, I rely on the citizens of Stratham to say we trust what the state of New Hampshire allows us to use for technology to accurately count and process our ballots. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Well, my next note was our critical deadlines are Tuesday, March 12th for the general election. And to answer your question, from 7 to 7 a.m., 7 p.m. at the SMS, which is the Stratham Memorial School on Gifford Farm Road. And this article that you just asked the question about, the articles 12 through 15, will be voted on Saturday morning, March 16th at 9 o'clock at the Stratham Memorial School on Gifford Farm Road. So you have two more. I appreciate you guys coming out to the school district meeting this past Tuesday night. We need you on Tuesday, March 12th for the general election and Saturday, March 16th for the town meeting. Can I answer any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Exeter TV. Thank you to the 100 participants that came out tonight. Very well done.